That one concept that sits underneath every good decision you have ever made or will ever make at the table. Think back to the last time you made a big decision at the table and how it went wrong. Maybe you called a riverbed you should have folded. Maybe you folded and the villain turned over a bluff. Maybe you value bet and got raised off your hand by someone who had you crushed. And what did you say to yourself afterwards? Most players say something like this: I put him on a middle pair, or I thought he was on a draw. What was he doing in this hand? But here's what nobody asks. Why was my read wrong? What was the information I was working with? What information was I actually missing in my assessment of the hand? Was I working with evidence, or was I working with a story that I made up in my head? Those types of questions are the difference between players who keep making the same expensive mistakes and the player who actually gets better. Most players never ask them. The ones who are the ones you do not want to sit across from. Let me show you why. My name is Vinton, and this is Vinton Poker. Precision in, profits out. I've been playing live cash games for over 23 years, and I've been coaching players just like you for the last 4. My mission is simple. I want to help you think clearer, make better decisions, and bring home more cash from every session you play. Today, I want to talk to you about one thing, that one concept that sits underneath every good decision you have ever made or will ever make at the table, whether you know it or not. It is called PIPO, precision in, profits out. Now, I want to be clear about what PIPO actually is. I coined the term to describe something specific. Most players learn many poker concepts, but almost all independent of each other. Math, reads, position, aggression, bet sizing, etc. And then at the table, those concepts just float around in their head with nothing connecting them together, no real order on how they should be actually used. PIPO is the system that ties them all together and makes them work synergetically to produce pinpoint accuracy results. It's not a move. It's not a technique or a bluff line or anything you do robotically at the table. PIPO is what connects all of those tools and concepts into a unified decision-making process. So your math, your reads, your aggression, they're all working together instead of operating in isolation. It is the operating system underneath every single decision you make. It's the assembly line that teaches and helps your brain to consistently produce plus EV decisions, and is what turns good knowledge into great execution and consistent long profits. Think of your brain like a supercomputer. Every decision you make at the table is an output that your supercomputer produces. But even the most powerful computers are useless without solid frameworks to process the information fed into them, and are equally useless without great data. So what's your framework? What are you feeding it? Most players feed their brain garbage and lack any logical framework to process that half-baked set of information. Vague feelings and incomplete ideas. They pick up on things they watch on random YouTube videos and high-stakes cash games they can't relate to, narrated by some guy in a commentary booth whose entire job is to just keep you watching and entertained, not to make you a better player. They play on tilt. They operate on wishful thinking and gut feelings dressed up as strategy. And then they sit there wondering why the money keeps leaving the table in someone else's pockets. Garbage in, garbage out. It's pretty simple. PIPO flips that completely. Precision in, profits out. So what does precision in actually mean? Well, it has 2 parts. The first part is data collection. And I don't mean a vague sense of how someone is playing. I mean an actual tangible set of evidence. What hand has this player shown down with? What sizings does he use when he is strong? Does he bluff his missed draws? Does he fold turns facing aggression? You are collecting data points, as many as possible, as accurately as possible, every time you're sitting at the table. The data is the fuel that runs your decision engine. The second part is the math. The math inside PIPO is not just one calculation. It's a series of mathematical concepts layered on top of each other in a very specific and methodical order. Pot odds, equity, expected value, sizings, each concept feeds into the next like a chain. That chain is the engine. Now, here's the key. The engine only produces great decisions when you feed it great data. Good data runs through a disciplined mathematical process. That is what precision in actually means. And when you get those two things working together, the profit out part is not something you chase. It's just something that flows out naturally. Try to imagine this hand. You're sitting across from a player. He bets the river and it's on you. The average player in that spot is thinking one of two things. He seems strong, or I have a feeling he's bluffing. That's it. That's their entire thought process. A feeling wrapped in poker language passed off as a read. But in about a few minutes, that player is going to make a real financial decision based on something their brain invented on the spot. That is not a disciplined analysis. That is pure narration. And narration at the poker table is just a fancy way of losing money slowly. The PIPO player in that spot is not telling themselves a story. They're asking questions, the right questions in the right order. What type of player is this? What has he shown down with tonight? What does his sizing look like when he's actually strong in a hand? Has he bluffed the river once all night? Does he let go of top pair or does he ride it into the felt? Does this board hit the range he would actually play this way? And once those questions have answers, the math has something real to work with. For example, the pot is $300. He bets 200. You need to win this call roughly about 40% of the time to break even. That number means nothing in a vacuum. But against a player who has not bluffed once in 4 hours, it means fold. Against a player who has fired every missed draw all night, it means call and maybe even raise. Same spot, same bet, same math, completely different conclusion because the data going into the calculation is different. That is precision in working exactly it is supposed to. Every question you ask cuts the uncertainty down. And by the time you act, decision was not a guess. It was a calculated conclusion built on evidence and processed through logic and math. Now you're making a decision based on evidence instead of emotions. And when your inputs are precise, something changes in your game. Every decision downstream stops being a calculation about an imaginary average player and it starts being a calculation about the specific human being sitting across from you right now. You bet bigger for value because you know he calls too much. You size up your bluffs because you know he folds to pressure. You fold hands you would have called with in other hands, in other spots, because you know he never bluffs. Every single adjustment is grounded in real reasoning and data. And decisions grounded in information aimed at a real target, that is when poker stops feeling like gambling and starts becoming a sharply crafted edge designed to cut out pieces of profit from your opponents. Here's what this looks like in a real hand. You have top pair weak kicker on the river. The player across from you has called 3 streets with weak top pair twice tonight. You saw it both times. You filed it away. Now you overbet. You charge him the maximum because you already know he can't fold marginal hands. He calls. That is not a lucky read. That is precision in, producing profits out. Now take the same hand against a different player. Same cards, same board, same river. But this player has not bluffed once in 4 hours, not a single time. And he just overbet into you. You fold top pair and you feel nothing but confidence doing it because the data was clear. Same cards, two completely different decisions. And neither one had anything to do with how you felt in the moment. Both decisions were rooted in quality information you collected before that river card ever even hit the felt. Before we go on, if you're getting value from this video, give it a like and share it with someone else who's also serious about becoming a crusher just like you. Your support helps this channel grow and it means the world to me. Also, don't forget to share your thoughts and questions in the comments below as I read them all. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any future episodes. Now, I want to stop right here because if your first instinct after hearing all of this is to start paying attention to your opponents when you're in a hand, you are one step behind. That work starts before you get a hand. The PIPO player knows that the work starts the moment they sit down, not the moment the dealer pitches them the cards. It starts the moment their chips hit the felt, because every hand that gets played before you're in a hand is free information. And free information is the most valuable kind of information. When a PIPO player is not in a hand, they're doing the most important work of their entire session. They're watching C2 and asking, what does his sizing look like when he actually has a hand? They're watching C5 and asking, does he bet his draws or check them down? Does he fold turns or does he peel one off out of stubbornness? Does he defend his blinds with trash and then abandon it the moment the flop misses him? They're watching every showdown like it's a deposition because every card that gets turned face up is evidence. While everyone else is waiting for the next hand, the PIPO player is already building the case for the huge pot they're going to rake in 3 hours from now. Every showdown is a data point. Every strange line is a clue. Every bet is a confession. And the player who's collecting all of that data, hand after hand, session after session, quietly and patiently building a profile on every single player that sits across from them, that player is not just playing poker, they're running an operation. And everyone else at the table is just playing their cards. Think about it like this. Imagine someone handed you a notebook before the session even started. And inside of it, it was this. C2, he never folds top pair. C3, raises only sets. C4, bluffs every missed draws on the river. C5, calls way too wide preflop and gives up on the turn. C6, overfolds rivers the moment you apply pressure. You would guard that notebook with your life. You would study it in the parking lot before you walked in, because that information is worth thousands in a single session and tens of thousands over a career. Every player at your table is writing that notebook in real time for you. Every hand is another entry. Every showdown is another page. They are authoring their own tells with every decision they make and are handing that information directly to anyone paying close enough attention to notice. Most players are not paying enough close attention. They're too busy thinking about their own cards to notice that everyone else at the table is giving their money away for free. And this is the reason I built the entire PIPO framework in the first place. The math alone is not the edge. I know that sounds strange coming from me, but stay with me for a second. The math is the weapon. Your observations are the targeting system. And those two are completely different things. A weapon without an accurate targeting system doesn't miss occasionally. It misses consistently, expensively, and in ways that are very hard to diagnose because the math itself looks correct. You ran the calculations. You got a number. You made the bet, and you still lost because the data you fed into that calculation was garbage. The math only works as well as the information behind it, which means the real edge was never math alone by itself in a vacuum. The real edge was the quality of what you fed into the math. I'll tell you something I have seen over and over again in the last 4 years of coaching. The players who improve the fastest are almost never the ones who study the most strategy. They are the ones who learn to watch people the most accurately, learn what to look for, and how to use that information effectively, efficiently, and precisely against them. Because live poker is not about playing against theory. It's playing against the guy in seat 2 who has not bluffed once in 3 hours. It's played against the guy in seat 5 who can't fold top pair on any street on any board. It's played against real people with real tendencies that repeat themselves session after session if you're disciplined enough to identify them precisely. A player with basic math and sharp observation will outperform a solver student who ignores the human at the table. Not occasionally, consistently. Because one of them is playing a game that is actually unfolding right in front of them, and the other one is playing a game that only exists in training apps. Precise reads plus correct mathematical application equals crushing consistency. A read without math is a good guess. The math without a read is a sophisticated guess. Together, they stop being guesses entirely and become strategic analysis. That is the formula. That is what PIPO is built to produce. Now, everything I just described, the observational habits, the layered math, the unified decision-making process, none of it happens automatically. It has to be built deliberately, systematically, one concept at a time. And that is what my course, the Delusion Killer Masterclass, is exactly designed to do. It takes PIPO from the ground up and installs it into every part of your game. The data collection, the mathematical frameworks, the decision-making sequences under pressure, all of it built step by step so that what you understand intellectually becomes what you actually do at the table when it counts. I've sat across from enough struggling players to know what this material does when someone actually applies it. They become crushing monsters. The students inside this program who put in the time and the effort, they're not the same players they were 3 months before. Just imagine the power you can wield, the independence you can gain by becoming a crusher who consistently prints and moves up in stakes methodically and strategically with just a few months of solid studying and effort. If you want to change your game, crush live cash games, create independence, and crush a game you love to play, you can find the Delusion Killer Masterclass at vintonpoker.com/course. And if you want me to analyze your game personally, I offer a free 60-minute one-on-one video coaching session with me directly. It's available to you while spots are still open. Bring me hands that have confused you. Bring me a leak that you can't plug. Bring me a spot where you know something is wrong, but you can't put your finger on what it is. We'll work through it together. Get specific about what needs to change. And you will leave that call with a clearer picture of where your game is right now and who you are as a player, and will be armed with a plan for what you need to do to get to where you want to be, faster and better than ever before. Book your free spot through the WhatsApp link in the description below. Come find me. Here's what I want you to take away from everything we just covered today. Think back to the hand that we talked about at the very beginning, the bad call, the costly fold, the decision that went wrong and left you sitting there wondering what happened. The reason it went wrong was almost certainly not your strategy, because 98% of you don't even have a strategy, even though you think you do. It was your inputs You were working with a story instead of evidence. You were answering the question of what to do before you answered the question of what you actually know. So here's the habit that fixes that. Before every significant decision, stop asking what you should do. Ask what information you actually have. Separate the facts from feelings, the evidence from the story. Once your inputs improve, your outputs improve exponentially. And your outputs improving is just another way of saying you're winning more money and keeping more of it. Precision in, profits out. That is the whole game. And now you know why. If you want to keep improving and keep leveling up your game, watch this next video. As always, I'm your friend Vinton. GG.